Hello and welcome to episode 323 of the Stacey West Podcast. I stumbled over my words a little bit there. We are the longest running Lincoln City podcast on the scene, and we are beginning to look a little bit like it as well with the wrinkles. I'm joined by a man today who hasn't got a single wrinkle on that freshly shorn head of his. He's the Duncan Goodhue of the Stacey West Podcast, and if you get that reference, you're 40 or over. How are you doing, Gibraltar Charlie?
Actually proud of myself that I don't get references like that. So although my hairline might make me look like I am 40 something, I'm actually young, a lot younger. So yeah, I'm all right. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, that wasn't the dig. Duncan Goodhue was a famously bald swimmer from the 80s, a British swimmer from the 80s. Yeah, I know it wouldn't. But basically, anyone that had a bald head when I was growing up, you would call them Duncan Goodhue, and that would be a slur. I was going to call you. I was thinking about how to introduce you actually. Oddly, while I was in the shower a little while ago, and I was going to introduce you as looking like Humpty Dumpty, but I thought that might be a little bit unfair.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's not unfair. It might have been mean, but it's not unfair.
Well, I've got to be less mean. I was pulled up the other day for being mean to Ben by Fee, because obviously Ben's got his first house. Congratulations. I said some nice things to him in a message, and then I typed out another message saying all that sacrifice that you made, only buying 2 sets of Lego instead of 3, and downgrading on the 3D printer at first. And then I got it all typed out, and Fee just looked at me. She said, "Why can't you just let him have his moment? Why do you always have to be like that?" And it's like, all right, that's brilliant. That's superb.
I think I immediately messaged him something along the lines of congratulations on finally getting your mango or whatever fruit it was at the time that he tried making reference to when he first told us about the house move. So yeah, if I had a wife as well, I'm sure she may have said the same thing.
And also, I got pulled up on saying something. Oh, it was Chris. So on the fantasy football show, the one that we enjoy making more than people enjoy watching. I didn't tell him about the captainship. I knew that if you played the captainship this week, it would be probably not as good as it will be in week 21 when there's 3 games in the space of 7 days. And Fee said, and what? And you didn't tell him? I went, no, I waited till we were on air. And then I told him on air that he shouldn't have played it. I said, and he looked gutted for a minute. And she went, you're awful. Why didn't you just tell him that? It's like, but it's good. It's good video, wasn't it? It was good video. And,
and it's also a competition. Like,
exactly.
What do you want to do? Give a leg up to the competition? That would just be ridiculous.
Exactly. And just for the record, I won for the 4th week in a row, which after my abysmal start on the fantasy league, not as bad as yours. You just don't do it, do you?
I can't. It does not let me log into my account. I have tried to be logging in since like the 3rd week. It just doesn't let me get into the account at all. I've tried resetting passwords, everything. And now it's at that point where I'm like, well, I don't even have the motivation to even restart. So
sounds
it's a shame. I was really looking forward to it as well.
Sounds a lot like user error to me. That's what it sounds like. Let's
we've got football to talk about.
We're talking about football, Charlie. We have got football to talk about, and we've got football that sparks probably more debate than any other football at all, which is the EFL Trophy. And for me, last night's game, as we're recording now, not as you're listening to it, it's a really odd one to call because it has elements of it's a local derby, it's a must-win cup game. We want to put this cup hoodoo to bed. Michael Scabala's lost 3 games against lower league opposition. He hasn't won a cup game. So there was all this sort of narrative around it. But at the same time, it was just it's the EFL Trophy, isn't it? And I have a huge interest in it because I love seeing the fringe players. I like seeing the youth players. Nobody can tell Denny Oliver that last night's game didn't mean anything because it's the first professional game he's been named on the bench. So I think it's a real strange one, the EFL Trophy.
It is. I couldn't have cared less about the fact that it was being played against Grimsby yesterday. I couldn't have cared less about the fact that, Scubala still hasn't won a cup game going into the game or anything like that. I'd have wanted us, like before the game, I wanted us to win obviously because you never want us to lose, but also because I'd like to see us progress. It's always a chance to go to Wembley, and it doesn't really matter until you're in that semi-final. You've suddenly got the chance to go to Wembley. You know, nobody can really remember. I'm sure you can't remember the group stage games that we had in the season where we went to the final. Okay, maybe I'm sure you can, Gary. But it's the point. Yeah, exactly. It's the point, isn't it, that you don't remember these games, but what you do remember is the performances from the fringe players. That's the only reason I like to watch these games. It's to see the likes of Oisin Gallagher starting. Remember a couple of seasons ago, the Newcastle under-21s game, and Alicia Ahui played in that match. And I thought he looked really comfortable and confident in that game. And performances like that stick with you. The results, I couldn't tell you what the result, actually, no, it was 2-0. But I couldn't tell you what the results in so many other group stage games were, or who we even played looking a few years back. But you remember those specific performances, and that's, I think, what this competition is most important for.
The year we won it, wasn't it? Mansfield, because it wasn't it the Luke Waterfall bottle incident, and then wasn't it Notts? It was Mansfield away. It was Notts County at home, and it was Everton under 21s. And I'm pretty sure Jordan Maguire-Drew and Josh Ginnelly scored in the games. And then in the group stages, I know we beat Accrington. In the knockout, I know it was Accrington, Rochdale away because it was one of Nathan Arnold's last games. Peterborough, we beat them 4-2 at our place. Chelsea in the semi-final when Ryan Allsop made the save. And I think when you come out of the National League, actually, the trophy holds a little bit of wonder because it's like, we're finally not having to play Salisbury and Worcester and no disrespect to those teams like Whitehawk. When we're going to play real teams, even if it is the under-21s, it feels like you've regained a little bit of your identity. And I think, it's the same with Chesterfield this season, having come out the National League. They were really up for it and gave it a go. Whereas now there is among many league teams that kind of ambiguity, that whatever. But it serves a purpose.
Yeah, it does. And that purpose can change season on season for the club. It doesn't have to be kind of an over-defining purpose of the competition. Like at the moment, we're using it to give fringe players minutes, and it's great because we've got such a deep squad. And we met 9 changes we made yesterday. Like, when was the last time you can remember Lincoln City making that many changes going into a game, especially against Grimsby? So for us, it's a great opportunity for that. But like you say, coming straight out of the National League, it was a chance to win some silverware. And also, if I remember correctly, I don't think it was always guaranteed that in the knockout stages, the Premier League club played away from home in that season, because I'm almost certain that the game before us, Chelsea played at Stamford Bridge against Oxford. I might be wrong on that, but I feel that was the case. And I am going to have a look at that at some point, because I seem to remember that being in my mind at the time of there's a chance that we could go away to them or whatever it was when the draw was happening. Again, if I'm wrong, by all means, but
yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I think it's always been that teams play away from home, and in reality, it's games like last night. They make it tough to hate the competition, but they also make it tough to like the competition. That sounds really stupid, doesn't it? Because it's Blundell Park, it's Grimsby, it's a great chance to get out there. Some of the fringe players are going to play, and then the game kicks off, and you go, it's flat. And it was. Well, I mean, we'll talk about the team selection, and we'll talk about some of the players in a little while. But that first half, it was a little bit flat. There were chances. It was better than some games we've seen in the competition. But it was just a little bit disjointed, wasn't it, and bitty.
Yeah, and look, we can sit here and kind of give it as an excuse or an explanation or whatever you want to call it that we did make 9 changes. So something like that isn't that surprising. And we're sat here debating the importance of this competition. Now, I'm not saying that the players on the team coach going to the game were doing the exact same thing, but surely it's going to be playing on their mind, the importance of this competition. And yeah, all right, they'll come out in the interviews pre-match and they'll say this is a must-win game, this is huge for them and all of this. And some of the fringe players who haven't had any minutes are going to be looking to create opportunities for themselves to show off. And actually, that can create a kind of disjointed atmosphere in the dressing room because everybody's trying to show off their best selves. And sometimes that can maybe mean different decisions being made than they would do if it was a league game and they were having regular minutes. So it's unsurprising. And it does create that really weird atmosphere with this competition. And it happens every game. And it happens every season. We're always having the same conversation around it. But there isn't exactly a fix. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, good point. You were right, by the way. Chelsea did play Oxford at Stamford Bridge, the game before us. Good knowledge, that, Charlie. I thought that the under-21 teams always played away. So, yeah, fair play to you. So last night, I mean, in the first half, there was one standout player for me. Well, there wasn't one, but there was one player that really caught my eye, and I thought, if only we didn't have four other left wing backs. I thought Saxon Early played really well in the first half. I thought he looked energetic, looked to get on the ball. Eric Ring, to be fair, on the other flank, I thought did the same. Lewis Monsmer had a bit of a ropey first half in places. And I just thought the midfield, although there wasn't a bad player in the midfield, I mean, Oshin certainly didn't look out of place. He looked like a steady kind of central midfielder. Jack Moylan, we know what he's all about. I mean, obviously Ethan Hamilton, I think just coming back, looks a little bit not jaded, but you can tell it's half Ethan Hamilton, which you expect. But I think the combination of that, a player coming back from injury, a young player who played for Peterborough Sports but has been out injured, Oshin, by the way, he only came back in for them on Saturday after a concussion, and the kind of the makeshift back three to a degree. We let them in a couple of times, and I think we get into half time, and it's the first time, by the way, we've ever got to half time after 11 minutes on the Stacey West podcast. To get into half time at 0-0, it actually felt like it had been a little bit laborious to watch.
Yeah, and like I said, there's always going to be reasons for that. Every single player, as we said, Ethan Hamilton, for example, what a fantastic midfielder we know he is, and we know he will be in a few games' time. But coming back off such a lengthy absence, it's always going to happen. He's coming in without having played a single minute, even in pre-season. Even the likes of Lewis Monsmer, although he's been out for such a long time, he got a bit of a pre-season with us, even if his game time has been carefully sort of choreographed between then and now. But for him, he's having to come in totally fresh, and obviously they're going to have little training games on the training pitch and all of that. But it's never the same. You can never simulate a real life match quite in the same way. So there's always a reason for that. But like you just said there, you were able to pick out the performance, and that's going to be one of the performances that you remember in 6 months' time when we're talking about going into the final few games of the season. Who should be playing as our left wing back? You'll say, well, Saxon Early had started his Imps career, but played in that game against Grimsby in the, what's it called now, the BSM Trophy, and has kicked on from there. That could be something that we're talking about in 6 months' time, and we hope that it is. Somebody showing off now, bearing in mind he won't be going on an international break by all accounts, so he'll be on the training pitch for the next week. Hopefully can show off a little bit more, and who knows if he's going to get minutes in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I think, also got to talk about the absence of reserve team games. Because back when I was a boy and you were merely an itch, a yearning deep in your daddy's loins, which I didn't realise we're going to be talking about things like that on the podcast today. But there was a reserve league. Oh. And it was competitive, the reserve league. I've got a new clipping from Newcastle coming down and playing, strong players, strong international players sometimes in the reserve league. And that was where people gained fitness. That was where players came back in. That was where suspended players got us minutes. That's where your young players got blooded. I'm going back even further. And I mean, I am talking 80 years now before my time. Reserve team matches even had programs printed for them. And I think if clubs like us are going to be able to develop our youngsters and actually not have them gobbled up by the big under-21 sides at Chelsea and things like that, what we have to do is prove a pathway for them into senior football. And you do that. I know Chris will love that, but you do that by getting in the EFL Trophy. And so it's almost like it feels counterproductive having under-21 sides being able to play in this and the National League Trophy and the Premier League too, because it's hoarding young talent. But actually, there's a layer of young talent there which benefits from it because they get regular minutes at our level. And we're talking Hayden Cam, we're talking Alicia Hugh, we're talking Oshin Gallagher, Freddie Draper, Jovan Makama, all players that have got regular minutes at first in this competition. And now, obviously, MJ Kamara as well. So it's hard. And I get that everybody looks at it and goes, it's terrible. It's the Premier League, or they're putting their tentacles in. We're nearly 10 years into this competition now. And they're no further with putting B teams in the pyramid. The closest they've got is being able to go away to Boston United on a Tuesday night and play academy football there as well. So I'm not a fan of the morals behind the trophy. But I think games like this, actually, I think are much more used to Lincoln City than League Cup games. And just League Cup games, really. The FA Cup's different.
Yeah, you're right. League Cup game. I mean, look, the League Cup is great as the opportunity to go away to a big club like Southampton or to host a West Ham and all this. But, as we've spoken about plenty of times before on the podcast, you don't get any prize money until you reach the semi-final. A League One club, realistically, is not going to be reaching the semi-final, especially not with the money that the Premier League teams have in the game nowadays. So kind of really what is the point of that competition too much? Because you also, if you go out against, let's say, a League Two club in the first round and you go out and put a reserve team out like, okay, not a reserve team, but a fringe player team like we did last night against Grimsby. We did that against a League Two club in the first round. The fans would go absolutely crazy at the likes of Michael Skubala and anybody making decisions on the team because they're like, well, we want a cup run. That's great. Obviously, you want a cup run. We all get so emotionally invested in it. But for the purpose of the club, you also want to be able to have, like you say, these games with fringe players, which is why this competition, especially for us right now, is kind of fit for purpose quite well. And obviously, the longer we're in it, the more opportunities we get like that. And then the longer we're in it as well, the more likely first team players are going to be playing more of the games because you get to the quarters and the semi-finals. Suddenly, it's no longer about that and it's about the chance to go to Wembley and all of that. But it doesn't have to just be evil or good. It can be a mix of both. I agree with you. The morals behind it are bad. They're not good. I get the whole point of give them an inch, they'll take a mile and all of that. But we've given them the inch in at the moment. Like you say, they've taken an inch and a tenth of an inch on top of that. That's it. What else can they really do?
We've given them an inch and they've taken Boston away on a Tuesday night. So let's drill into specifics about last night's game. I've praised Saxon early. I praised Eric Ring. I've kind of praised Oisin Gallagher. There was a lot of good performances. I don't like to be too down on players, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't look at a certain Rob Street, because Rob had a really difficult game last night, and it's not the first one that he's had since he's come into the side. I'm not going to say he's the forgotten man. So from your point of view, Rob Street, he's obviously been signed as almost like not a project player, but as a long-term prospect. So do you think that these early performances, is it just a reflection of that? Does he look like he's struggling to settle? Is it because that we don't have a particularly bad player that he's just standing out and he's not actually doing all that badly?
Again, I wouldn't want to say that he's doing badly per se. Like you said, don't want to sort of absolutely slate a player. Is he doing as good as the other strikers? No. Is that because of the other strikers' strengths? Partly. They are performing at quite a high level. Jovan is getting praise week in, week out, and rightly so. He's come into his own. Freddie has come on the pitch and managed to get a couple of goals, and he's showing exactly what he can bring to the team. Bailey Calamatri, the exact same, just like last night. Ben House, we know exactly what Ben House can do. And then there's Rob Street, like you say, and you're not that far wrong, really, with the forgotten man thing. He is that fifth striker, and for squad depth reasons, we need that. We want that. That's perfect. But where is his short-term Lincoln City future? We know what hopefully his long-term future will be. I want to pick up on the fact that we're calling him a long-term project player, and I agree, but only to an extent, because he's already had, over a full season in League One. He was a player that we wanted to sign last summer and didn't, and we went in again this year and got him, potentially on more of a cut price deal than what we could have done beforehand as well. He's somebody that we monitored for a while, and okay, yeah, we're seeing the potential in there, but how? I don't even want to say like how late is he going to reach that potential, because again, he's still a young lad and all that. But at what point do we sit here and think, okay, soon enough he has to start showing something now, or else there is a little bit of a worry about how high that potential really is?
Yeah, look, last night he had a stinker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't want to labour on it too much. But total actions, so that's passes, crosses, dribbles, duels, aerial duels, 32. 4 were successful. He entered into 19 duels and won 1, tried to play 7 passes, and only 3 of them were accurate. Freddie Draper came on for 25 minutes, total actions 23. So bear in mind, Rob Street 32 in 75 minutes. Freddie 25 minutes, 23 actions, 8 successful, 6 passes, 5 successful. And there was again, we kind of jumped ahead of ourselves a little bit, but there was a real shift, I think, when we first saw Fred come in. And even for Bailey Cadamartri, who, again, he had a tough evening, by the way. 41 total actions, 12 successful, 10 passes, 6, duels won, 17-5. The numbers really do suggest that Rob had a tough game. All I would say is I don't think it's reflective of his talent. I just think for a young man, he didn't have a great pre-season. He's kind of been in and out. I just urge fans to persevere. I don't want him to be the whipping boy, which is what we've just put in, but he wasn't good last night.
Let me contradict myself and flip it round.
Yeah.
Lasse Sorensen, 18 months with us, a different position, of course, but Lasse Sorensen, 18 months with us, didn't exactly show that much. And I remember him having a really poor trophy game quite early on in his career as well. I can't remember what the game was or who it was against, but I remember him having a categorically poor match in a trophy game and him getting slated for it. And at the time, rightly so, because it wasn't good. But then managed to turn it around, managed to take his opportunity when it presented itself. Obviously, part of that was the change in position and all of that. But then managed to pick it up, and now look where he is. And bear in mind, he was another player that had already spent a season in League One as well on loan at MK Dons before coming to us. So hopefully we can have a very similar situation there where maybe a little bit more of a late bloomer. He's just going to get a little bit of time to settle. Who knows? It might even be a change of position in there for him. But there's hopefully going to be the opportunity for him to prove fans wrong in the same way that Lasse did.
Yeah, reasonable point. So Grimsby scored first, and it felt to me very, very Chesterfield, very Harrogate, because I thought second half we looked a little bit better. It was a little bit of a fluke goal, wasn't it? I mean, Wickens has just spilled the ball into the guy's path. It doesn't even look to me like the guy's had a shot. It's almost like spilled into him and it's bounced off him and into the net. But it was a little bit of a blow. But I thought we showed great character after that. I thought that going a goal down almost spurs us on sometimes. And it certainly did in this game. It really spurred us on. And then a goal by Bailey Cadamartri. Now, we said he didn't have a great game. I don't think he didn't get a lot of service. He was running into a lot of blind alleys. It wasn't particularly his fault. But the one moment he's called upon, well, it's two moments because he's hit the post in the first half when we thought he was going to score. And then the second moment, I mean, it's a quality header. Probably there's two moments of quality in the game that were better than the game deserved, and that was one of them.
It's what a goal scorer needs to do, isn't it? It's as simple as that, really. And that's what somebody like Bailey Cadamartri, with his kind of reputation coming into us on loan, obviously, for this season, that's kind of what you expect from him. It's obviously too early to say that you expect that game in, game out, and you sort of knew it was coming or anything like that. But you would expect him to be able to create goal-scoring opportunities himself and to be able to take them when they are there. Which is exactly what he did yesterday. So really impressed with the fact that he can do that, and the fact that he's not had a great performance, off the ball or even on the ball. Outside of that, kind of meaningless when you're a striker and you've scored the goal sometimes. Yeah,
and that's 2 goals for him now so far since he's moved. He's been in and out of the side. I think he will be for a lot of the season. I don't think he's going to be like a Joe Taylor who is more or less undroppable, because I think we're in a place now where our squad doesn't have anybody, perhaps bar Ethan Arahan and Paddy O'Connor, who are undroppable, and George Wickens possibly as well. They're the 3. Outside of that, you could in theory drop more or less anybody. Whether you would or wouldn't, I don't know. I thought after the goal, but they still had a go. Fair play to them, because they'd made plenty of changes. And I know there was a comment the other day, David Artell said his side had played like prime AC Milan or something like that, which did make a few people laugh. But there is actually, just on a completely different point, that there is actually a link between Grimsby and Siena, the Renaissance town in Italy. Did you know that?
I didn't. No.
The dock tower, so the tower in on the docks at Grimsby, is actually modelled on the tower in the I think it's Piazza del Campo in Siena, which is a historic square in the centre of Siena. And so travellers who were going over to Italy to collect all the, I don't know, whatever they brought back from Italy, probably in the 1500s, it wasn't pizza and spaghetti, but do you know what I mean? Picking up whatever they were, spices or cloth or whatever. And they came back to Grimsby, and the dock grew up, and they actually modelled it on that. Anyway, So that's 2 links with Italy, given that Grimsby Town now play like AC Milan, according to David Artell. But if anybody looked Serie A quality, it was Jack Moylan with the finish.
He is such a talented footballer, is Jack Moylan. And his minutes again have been in and out of the squad ever since coming into the team back in January. But when he's been given his opportunities, he's taken them with such confidence and such maturity as well, to be able to just take his opportunities when he can. And I've been really, really impressed. There are going to be games where Jack Moylan won't get into the team at all because his style of play can maybe be a little bit specific. But then at the same time, if you're 1-0 down, let's say, against probably any team in League One, we're 1-0 down going into the 75th minute, get behind Jack Moylan to come on and create something for you, even if it's just that one opportunity. And sometimes, especially at the moment with this Lincoln side, all we're really needing is that 1 or 2 opportunities. So I think he's such a valuable asset to the club. Whether it means he's starting week in, week out, it doesn't matter, because to have him in the squad roster, honestly, it's priceless.
So here we go. So we talked about Rob Street, 32 actions, 4 successful. Bear in mind, Jack did play longer, but 57 actions, 29 successful. So he got a goal, he got an assist. He was 15 completed passes from a potential 22, 5 interceptions. I mean, he works incredibly hard. And at the beginning of the season, we were, as collective podcast, we were running down our strikers and our midfielders, and we kept missing out Jack Moylan. But I keep saying it's almost like an Anthony Scully situation where we kept missing Anthony Scully out. Is he a 10? Is he a striker? Is he a winger? No, he's none of those. Well, what is he? Well, he plays. He's got to play somewhere. And Jack Moylan's forced himself into that kind of rotating with Tom Bayliss, where we were thinking perhaps it was going to be JJ McKinnon. Where does Dom Jeffries fit in? Got McGrandles, Hamilton. Right now, Moylan is one of 2 to play in that kind of attacking role, I think, behind Bayliss or around with Bayliss, rather. I think that's massive testament to him. And also, I've heard really good things about him behind the scenes as well. Really eager to get involved in the community things. I did the Magic Memories at the weekend for the Leighton Orient game with my friend Ross's son Deacon. So read the teams out, sit in the dugout. I went along, just purely to supervise, not because I wanted to do all that stuff as well. And the player that they could get to come in before the game after warming up was Jack Moylan, and he came over and he was delighted and he had his picture taken and all that sort of stuff. Really, really good guy. He's a massive asset and he's a really good find, I think.
Yeah, he really is. And we were really excited about him before he came because of the pedigree that he'd managed to build himself over in Ireland. And that we spoke with chief writer, deputy writer, whatever his name title was at the time at the Real EFL, and Adam Scully, about what can Jack Moylan bring to you. And you did an article, and I remember within that, Adam specifically said, who knows where he's going to play for you? He might play striker, he might play in behind, he might want to be out on the wing, but it doesn't matter. No matter where this guy plays, he's going to be able to create something for you, and he's going to be like a breath of fresh air whenever he gets on the ball. And I think so far in, 8, 9, 10 months, however long it's been since he's come in, he's proven Adam right very, very quickly. So, yeah, I'm really, really pleased to have him in the squad. And look, for all that off the field stuff as well, if he's doing that, great. It can only be an extra string to his bow.
Yep. So as things stand in Northern Group G, BSM Trophy stage, etc., Chesterfield are top with 1 win and 1 draw, but the draw got them a bonus point, so they're on 5. We are second with 1 win and 1 defeat. Our goal difference is 0. We are on 3 points. Then Manchester City Kids have also played 1 game, which they drew, but then lost technically. So they have 1 point. And Grimsby have played 1 game with no points. So there's still a lot of permutations. When Man City play Grimsby, the winner of that could potentially, if it were Grimsby and if it were on goal difference, go above us. If Manchester City were to win outright, they would go above us. There is a potential where we could still win our final game and not qualify, I believe. Because if Grimsby beat Man City, no, that wouldn't work, would it? No, there isn't. If we win our final game, we qualify. I was still thinking about Chesterfield, but yeah. So no, we win our final game, then we qualify. There we go. Maths never was my strong point. I'm not really sure what it was. So there we go. We managed to get half an hour out of the EFL Trophy game, which fascinates me. Somewhere I can hear the sound of Andy Pearson's heart breaking a little bit, because I know he's really annoyed with Ethan Arahan's booking, which could impact the season, but it won't, because obviously bookings and red cards in this competition are only in this competition, which is really frustrating, I think, when there was somebody sent off the week before we played them last season, and then they were able to play in the game as well. So yeah, really, really frustrating. Right, so I think at that point we'll take a break, and what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to take questions from the floor. So we've got 4 questions to answer from our Patreons before we love you and leave you. But for now, we will take a quick break. Welcome back from the adverts, and we are now here to answer some Discord questions. Now, we don't have a game this weekend, so there's nothing to preview. We are recording a special for you. That's Chris and Ben recording an Academy special with some super special guests. I can't enhance the word special quite enough there. So that's going to be well worth a listen. That's going to drop over the weekend, and then we'll be back to normal next week as we preview Lincoln City versus Birmingham City, which will be a huge, huge game. But right now, we're going to take some questions. We're not going out live on YouTube here because we're recording at an odd time, because Charlie had things to do. He's got his hand up.
Yeah, I have got things to do. I've also been told off for us not going live.
Who by?
My mother has messaged me because I told her I was recording the podcast later, and she's like, "Oh, will it be live?" I says, "Maybe." And she's messaged. She's not happy that we're not live. She's disappointed. She wanted to watch. I know.
One of the main reasons we haven't gone live, I'm gonna break the fourth wall now, is so before the show, I do weights now, and I do them in the garden. So while I go out there, I have a couple of glasses of like orange squash, like water, basically dilute. And I had a couple of those, and then I do have the whey protein as well because it's good for recovery. So I had a pint of that, and I had a cup of tea, and then we came on, and I knew that I was going to have to go to the toilet. And the last podcast I did live with Chris, I actually had to leave him talking on screen while I went to the toilet. So I really need to sort myself out. It is partly my fault, and partly the fact that we started recording this at 4:30 when most people are at work. Anyway, we will take
that's
questions.
My fault.
Yeah, that's Charlie's fault. We're both to blame a little bit, aren't we? So first of all, we've got 4 questions altogether, and then we're going to wrap up. It might be a slightly shorter show this week. But the first question is from Neil. Remember, these are all Patreon questions. So thank you very much for everybody who is a patron, and thank you for popping the questions in. So Neil says, with a fifth of the season gone and some of the big guns not exactly firing, given that at the start most people thought this was the toughest League One for years, do you now think we have a proper opportunity to be real contenders this season? Top 2 season-long playoff side. First of all, really good observation, I think, about League One, because there are a lot of teams, I think, that haven't fired like we would expect. Huddersfield and Bolton are the 2 that spring straight to mind for me, who you would have expected to have been at the top of the division, who are not. I think Barnsley are another one who many thought would be doing particularly well, and who are 11th. I think there's Rotherham, who are down in 17th. Some big spenders like Burton and Bristol Rovers we were worried about, and they're 23rd and 18th respectively. Wigan and Reading, both of whom we thought were going to be decent, are both middling again in 15th and 16th. So it's a really good point Neil makes about League One not quite looking as strong. Does that put us in a better place, Charlie, than we first thought?
Yes and no, because of some of those teams struggling because this is the toughest League One. Can we actually flip it on its head? That obviously, if you look at some of the results, for example, Bolton drawing against Shrewsbury at the weekend, that was just an off day, right? That never should have happened. Definitely shouldn't have happened because it ruined my blooming football lacquer and I missed out like 500 quid. So I was very angry at Bolton. But those results you just can't really account for. That's poor. Ian Everett potentially on the way out, the way that Bolton are going. But then, yeah, some of the other results, and those are quite questionable. Birmingham did lose. I've only lost 1 game so far. They're always going to be the outlier. We know they're probably going to win the league. Charlton might try and run them close, as some silly people predicted on the Real EFL in the summer. And to be fair, they did beat them at the weekend. But realistically, Birmingham are probably going to run away with this title. Outside of that, there was always going to be question marks around some teams. Rotherham were predicted to be one of the teams flying high quite early on in the summer, just because they did their business early. Naturally, that's, just because they have done that business early, it hasn't exactly proved out to be perfect business. Burton, okay, yeah, they spent a lot of money, but they were always going to be questionable as to how that would gel, especially with a new manager, basically a full new team. Would that really work? Bristol Rovers, maybe you'd have expected a little bit more from them, the amount of money they spent, but then again, could you really call the money they've spent wise money? I don't think we need to compare ourselves on that to the other teams in our league, because all right, maybe we don't spend as much money, but we've actually probably spent more this summer than we maybe ever have. Just trying to think about it. It's probably been one of our highest spend seasons so far. And we are doing extremely well because we spend the money well. Do I think we're going to be challenging for top two or a season-long playoff push? I think top two might be a struggle. Season-long playoff push, very potentially. I said at the start of the season, we get to the end. I think we'll get to the end of September, be in the top six, and then it's about staying there. I think that's kind of how it's going to turn out now. Season-long playoff push, probably.
Okay. So that's interesting, because just to answer Neil's question outright, do you think we have a proper opportunity to be real contenders this season? Yes.
Yeah,
I do. And I think it's quite right that there are some teams that have started badly. I mean, and when you look at the bottom five, across all of their last 6 games, so that's 30 potential games to be won, only one team has actually picked up a win. The bottom 5 look very, very true to form. But outside of that, there are a lot of teams that feel bang average. And I think League One always looks more daunting before you kick a ball than it does later on. Every year you go, oh, this one's tough because it's got Sunderland and Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday and Derby and Portsmouth and all these teams in. And then when it comes down to it, some of them are pretty much of a muchness. And we're where we are right now without being at our best. That's my opinion. I think that we are where we are now, having ground out some results. Last week against Blackpool and Leyton Orient, we took 4 points feasibly. We could have taken 1 point from those 2 games, could have drawn with Orient and lost against Blackpool. We grind out, we fight, we're very good. These results don't happen by accident, by the way. You don't play badly every week and get a result. People think or perceive what we do is playing badly, whereas actually the style of football sometimes isn't the most invigorating and exciting, and then when we need it to be, it is. But we will get better. Michael Scavala's side got better last season. The more time these players spend with him, the better we're going to get. We have had on paper what looks like a relatively easy start, but then when you look at the current top 6, you've got obviously us. So Stockport we haven't played, Wycombe we haven't played, Wrexham we haven't played, and Birmingham we haven't played. There's only Mansfield, any team in the current top 6 that we've played, we've beaten 4-1. But actually we haven't played anybody in the current top 9 other than Mansfield, because Exeter, Charlton and Huddersfield know the other ones, and we haven't played those either. So realistically, for me, the big test is actually the next couple of games. Is getting through these. We've got Birmingham and Stockport, both teams in the top 6, and then we've got Northampton and Crawley, both teams in the bottom 4. I said I think that we needed 10 points from the league games this month, which would be 3 wins and a draw. So that would give us wins against Crawley, Northampton, Leyton Orient, a draw against either Birmingham or Stockport, and then a defeat against Birmingham. Let's face it. Take that and win. Why not? Why not? Why would we not be top 6 challengers? And I didn't believe it at the beginning of the season because I believed the hype around a lot of the other clubs, but hype and reality are 2 very, very different things. And when you're a Lincoln City fan, sometimes it's the hype around your club. Under Mark Kennedy, it was certainly the hype around him and where we might be and what we felt. But now this season, I think it's been the hype around everybody else. And I think Neil's right. I think we are in a better position this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not surprised that Michael Scavala having a full pre-season has put us in a really strong position going into this campaign, and it's already shown. What are we, 9 games into the season? I think, aren't we, in the league season? I don't know.
Yep.
Mess it. Yeah, there we go. So I'm with you. I want to see at the end of October now, and then I'm sure at the end of October we'll be both saying now we want to see what it will be like at the end of November and then the end of December, because the managers turn around and say, we are just taking this one game at a time, and we'll get carried away. Come February, March, if we're still in the top 6, if we're 3rd, let's say, and we're 2 points behind whoever it is that's in 2nd, course, we'll start getting carried away and thinking about what could be happening at the end of the season. And we'll book hotels for Wembley and this and that, because that's what we do. That's what football fans are. But at the moment, we have to just be taking this every game or every couple of games at a time. Because like you say, at the moment, although we've had some really nice performances, we've had some comfortable performances, we've made teams look worse than maybe they even are just because of the way that we've played. I still want to see how we can translate that to the top teams in the division, like you said, like your Birmingham. Like, I think Stockport on paper are one of the best teams in this division, and that's them coming straight up from League Two as well. So I want to see how we can go against them. And then, like you say, how we can translate that against Northampton and Crawley on top of that, even though we've sort of shown how we can do that against the likes of Cambridge already. So once we start getting that fuller picture. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I actually think our game is more suited to those teams. I think we like other teams to have the ball and have possession, and we like that possession to be in their third of the pitch, and then we'll press them high when we need to. I mean, we try and win the ball back now, very rarely in our own area because it's hardly ever there. We try and pin teams in by letting them have possession, and I think it will work better against a Wrexham and a Stockport and teams like that, maybe teams that are a little bit naive. It makes me think a little bit of Sunderland a couple of years ago, where we basically went and just let them have the ball and we cut off their midfield. So they were trying, their defenders had to have it rather than their creative players. And it was, I think tactically we are better at stopping people playing. And that's not to say we're not good at playing when we need to. The best games I've seen a Michael Skubala's side, aside from the Mad March last month, we always perform well, I think, against the bigger sides. I'm trying to think of us playing a top side and losing under Michael Skubala since January the 1st, other than Portsmouth. I mean, it's crazy because we haven't actually lost all that many. But you think about the sides that we have played. Derby, we played Peterborough twice, who were a good side. We played Derby and drew with them. Wigan were a playoff chasing side last season. Blackpool are a good side. Mansfield are one of the top sides at the minute in the division. Right, so we'll move on to Dave Tyndall. I think this is Dave's question. He says, results have been good, and sure, we're all happy with 4th place in the league right now, but performances haven't been exciting with low possession in most games. Do you think we will need to change our style to create more chances with greater possession when Rico is fit to keep our place in the top 6? Now, this almost begins to play into what I've just been saying, in that, do you have to be a possession-based side to win games? Do you have to have the ball to be promoted? And I think the answer is no. I don't think you do. I think you have to have the ball to excite. And without sounding too critical, I think it will always be very difficult for this Lincoln side to excite all the time. Last March, the 5-1, 6-0, 5-0, it was mad, but it was a one-off. That hadn't happened in the Football League since the 50s, if I remember correctly, or something silly like that. I think that you have to be functional to be promoted. I think you have to be multifunctional to be promoted. You have to be able to play with the ball, which we can. We've proven that. Some of the team goals that we've scored this season have been outstanding. Peterborough springs to mind. Is that noise in your end, Charlie?
No.
No, it's stopped now.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Okay, I'll cut that out. If you're watching live on YouTube, I won't cut that out because it's too much fiddling about. So I don't know what you think. Just going on to possession, I mean, on today's question, do you think that we need to see more of the ball to stay in the top 6?
I'm going to give you a quiz question. It's a very, very easy answer considering this is the whole topic of conversation. I'm going to give you 3 Lincoln City matches under Michael Skubala. 3-0 away at Cambridge back in last November. 3-0 at home to Shrewsbury, where we made Shrewsbury look god-awful. And the 5-0 victory against Bristol Rovers at home. What do all 3 of those things have in common?
We had less possession than the opposition.
We had less possession than the opposition. We can still excite and we can still show off as a great team without having over 50% of the ball. I think it's obviously it's just the way the modern game is going. It's not about how much we have the ball. It's about what we do with it when we've got it. And we're still going to be able to create exciting opportunities. We talked about Jack Moylan, for example, earlier on. He's a player that when he gets hold of the ball, he can excite, he can do great things, and he doesn't need to have the ball for 70 minutes of the game just at his feet to be able to do it. He can do that as soon as he gets the ball every 20 minutes, for example, if he gets a touch. So we don't need to always have it. It's just about what we do with it. And what Marcus Gubal has shown already is that when we have the ball, we're not going to have possession for possession's sake. We're not going to do Russell Martin ball. That might have gotten Russell Martin up to the Premier League, but he's not going to be there for long, and he's failed upwards. What we want to be doing, and what Marcus Gubal wants us to do, is to have possession, to create opportunities, to create chances, and to do that with the ball, rather than just keeping hold of it just for the sake of it, because that's not going to get you anywhere. That's going to end up getting dispossessed. You're going to have players out of position left, right, and centre, and you'll get countered. So I don't really care about what the possession stats say. As long as I can still see that we are playing some games that are exciting and some games that are functional, and altogether it blends into getting the results and the performances that I think we've shown so far, I'm more than happy with it.
Cool. Right, so let's move on. So we've got two more questions. One of them is quite a short question, which is good. But I was really interested in this next one, and it's come from Jay on the Patreon. And he says, what do you make of the negative from the radio station in recent weeks? Even last night, Rob Street was in the firing line when he's clearly a long-term project. Seems like even some of our own people would love to see us fail. Now, I think we're talking here about Jimmy Walker being super critical against Blackpool, and he was really critical. I think Mark Home was quite critical of Rob Street last night. Your radio commentary sometimes does seem quite critical. And Jay's asking what we make of it. Now, I'll pick this up first of all. I think radio commentary is incredibly difficult. And I think it's really easy to pick up on certain comments when you're watching a game. We all watch Lincoln games with rose-tinted spectacles on. We do. Or unless you are, or you watch the opposite and you're always looking for the negatives. What the radio have got to try and do is be as neutral as possible, but offer a genuine opinion. The problem is because they are having to talk the whole time all the way through, often they repeat that opinion 2 or 3 times. Or if they give an opinion and then something happens that reinforces that opinion, they mention it again. And that then makes it look like they're being deliberately negative. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think actually we're really lucky to have the coverage that we have from Radio Lincolnshire, because let's face it, aside from us doing what we do at the Stacey West, there isn't a lot of other coverage at all. The Uni do a little bit when they're in, they're quite good. There's no other local media, so we are lucky to have what we have with the radio. I think Mark Hone and Jimmy Walker in particular are 2 pundits who people have probably identified as being critical in recent weeks. I think they're both brilliant. I did text a friend of Hone's yesterday just to say, can you tell him that it's Oisin and not Ocean? But other than that, it was, we have tried to kind of push, tried to be positive, I think, about the radio. So I do think it's difficult. I don't think they're negative on purpose. I think they call what they see, but sometimes the way that it's called and the medium through which it's called, as in the radio commentary, makes it look worse. And may I also add, it must be very difficult for them calling a game for radio that having the pictures beamed out to, we'll say Romania when it's Louth, or we'll say Gibraltar when it's Lincoln or whatever, because of so many people using VPNs to watch the games. But so many people can see what's happening, but that commentary actually is meant to be for people who cannot see what's happening. And I think that sometimes is quite tough as well, because they're trying to build a picture in your mind because it's for radio, but you can see the picture and you're building your own opinion. And if your opinion differs from theirs, it's really difficult. So I'm going to defend them, Charlie.
I think it's fair, especially when it comes to people that can't see what's happening. Like you say, people aren't watching it on Imps Plus, because you're right, their opinion is basically formed by what is being said by the commentators at the time, whether that be Jimmy Walker, Mark Cohen, anybody who's on, especially that kind of summariser role, because they are the ones that are typically the most either critical or full of praise for whoever the player is at the time. But then, like you say, if you're forming a different opinion, or even an opinion that isn't quite as strong as what theirs is, you're going to start to pick up more. It's basic confirmation bias. You're going to pick up more when they have an opinion that's differing to you, but then they're going to be picking up more on things like you said that they've already made their opinion on that reinforces their opinion, because it's not like it's an ego thing like, oh, well, I'm right, and that proves that I'm right sort of thing. It just simply helps reinforce the point that they're trying to get across. Of course, it's really difficult. But it's also a little bit ironic because I remember even back when it was under Mark Kennedy or even under Michael Scavala in the first few months, there were times where us on the Stacey West, and even before I came on, before Chris came on, you will have had it loads going, people criticising us for being too overtly positive. And now the radio are kind of getting it in the opposite direction. If anything, that's a great praise for Lincoln, because it actually shows that we're in a really good place, that people get annoyed when then media is being critical about the club and the team. It's a difficult fight. It's a really difficult and delicate fine line that they have to tread. I do think, especially someone like the social media posts and things like that, sometimes you can just see that they are trying to pick up on things that are negative, maybe because it's an angle that nobody else is really taking at the moment. And therefore, it is an angle that needs to be explored. We have to have all sides of the debate being covered. So they want to take on that mantle, why don't they?
Fair point. And also, could I just say, I think of the radio commentary, people are really critical of some of the BBC presenters. I actually find Rob Makepeace's commentary quite engaging. And Rob's a die-in-the-wall Lincoln fan. He was a Lincoln fan before he even went to Radio Lincolnshire. And I think that shines through. And I think he will be the voice of Lincoln City on the radio until they deem local radio no longer worthy, which whether that'll ever happen or not, I certainly hope not. I certainly hope that the coverage that we have will continue. So we have one more question, and it is from Sparkly Val. What a great name for what a great, it's quite upbeat, isn't it? I do like that.
It is.
This is with the draw for the first round proper of the FA Cup due to take place on Monday the 14th. Who would you like us to be drawn against, and do you think we might get past the first round this year? Wow. So there is another question literally just come in, which I'll pick up on as well. So I'll throw that over to you first of all, Charlie. Who would you like to be drawn against, and will we get past the first round?
I hope so. First of all, I really hope so. Somebody that we can comfortably beat, like a chip and look, just
like a
just
mortar.
Yeah. Just give me a team who we don't have to field the first team against, a little bit like with the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Give me a step 3 non-league side. Okay, yeah, they've got the chance of an upset, and it'll be their big day out and such, which would be great for them. But I'd like that. I'd take the likes of Bowers and Pitsy again, just as long as we win and it's in a little bit more of a comfortable fashion than what that was, because that's what the FA Cup's about. And it would be, it's nice after our FA Cup run a good few years back. It's nice to kind of be on the other side of that and be the big club and have, I think, obviously Mark Kennedy at the time invited the opposing manager into the dressing room after the game for a beer and things like that. So it's kind of a really nice feeling when we're the parent club in that situation rather than the little non-league side at the time. So I'd take that for the first round.
Well, I'd like a non-league side. I'd like it to be away because I will be in Germany that weekend watching Borussia Mönchengladbach and Victoria Cologne on the Friday night. There are a couple. I've looked through the fourth qualifying round games, and there are a couple that really jump out to me as, yeah, I'd like some of that. First of all, Russell Olympic play Peterborough Sports. Wouldn't it be brilliant if we got Peterborough Sports in the first round, given the kind of link up that we have with them? I think that would be quite a nice one. And plus, if it's away, it's not too far to go for people. I can't hop back from Germany, but it's kind of a doable one. Bear in mind, Gainsborough and Boston play each other. That would be the dream. One of those two at home, the Lincolnshire derby. We played Boston, I think, in the FA Cup in 1976. We played Gainsborough in an infamous Mark Home game, a double bill, around 1997. That's kind of one of the games that you look at and you think, I'd quite like that. The other two that jump out for me, Galston are still in the competition. They're away at Horsham this weekend. Used to go on holiday to Galston, little seaside town near Great Yarmouth. That would be fantastic. Kings Lynn Town are still in it, another local one that I'd quite like. But there is a big one that I would like. They are playing away at Boreham Wood, and it would put a decade-long ghost to bed. I would love us to draw Coshalton Athletic in the first round of the
I knew that's right. I didn't know they were playing Boreham Wood, but I knew as soon as you said that, that's where we were going there.
That's it. Putting that to bed would be brilliant. And that would just about do me. I think that would, if we got them and heaven forbid lost. Can you imagine it? Oh, it'd be a nightmare. Either way, look, you want an FA Cup tie against the lower league opposition, I think, because it does give you an opportunity to play some fringe players. Our fringe players are high quality. You know, despite last night's kind of the narrow nature of the result, bear in mind we played two kids that have been playing National League North. When it comes to the FA Cup, you could rotate the side a little bit and still have, you know, is it Ethan Hamilton or Conor McGrandles? Is it Freddie Draper, Joe Von Ben House or Bailey Cadamartri? So the options that we have this season, I think, will be impressive.
Let me pose a hypothetical question to you then. First round, and we're drawn home or away against Peterborough Sports.
Yeah.
Provided it is still our decision, which I believe it is, do you allow Shane Gallagher and MJ Kamara to play?
No.
No?
No, absolutely not. No chance. No, this isn't 2011-12 again, where you borrow Kyle Perry and then loan him to Telford. Were you born then? I don't know. No. Probably.
I was just about
2011.
I was born like 8 years before then. 2011 was the year I went to my first Lincoln game.
So do you know the story that we bought Kyle Perry?
No.
And he scored for us. I think I might be wrong, but I think he scored for us against Telford. Then later in the season, we changed manager. We loaned him to Telford. We borrowed, I think it was Rob Williams from them, but we didn't put a clause in that he couldn't play, and he played against us at Sinsel Bank and scored while he was on loan from us for Telford. So no, you couldn't possibly let them play. I mean, I can understand, you know, it's a competition, and the FA Cup's a serious competition. It's not like the EFL Trophy where you can just, you know, pull loan lads in or whatever. It's serious. So no. So one final one, and literally I'm going to go through each position and we answer it. It's from Kyle Fox, who's just started writing for us. Check out his stuff on the Stacey West. He's put, if all the current squad were available and fully fit, who would be in your starting 11? Pick your teams. So literally, we're going to assume 3-5-2. So Charlie, goalkeeper.
George Wickens.
George Wickens for me. Right-sided centre-half.
Pawdy.
Adam Jackson.
Or Jacko. Yeah.
Central centre-half.
Pawdy.
Left-sided centre-half.
Rowan.
Sean Rowan. Right wing-back.
Dariqua.
Dariqua. Left wing-back.
Ring.
Rico. Now, why I've gone Rico? Because when we go 4-4-2 out of possession, he's more of a left winger than he is the left back, I think. Holding midfielder.
So, moving on.
Ethan Arahan. So, central midfielder number 1.
McGrandles.
Conor McGrandles for me. Central midfielder number 2.
This is actually a really difficult one.
It changes for me.
It really does. It's for me. It's between 3 now that he's back from injury. Okay, I'm going to say if we had to be playing with one.
This is dead air, Charlie.
Yeah, I know it is. I'm going to go for Jack Moylan.
I'm going to surprise a few people now. I'm going to go for Jack Moylan as well. And I think I've been a massive Tom Bayliss fan, but at the minute, yeah, I do. I think Jack Moylan. Striker number 1.
Provided he's fit, Ben House.
Yep, Ben House for me. Striker number 2.
Jovan
McCarmer for me as well. So literally, the starting 11 that we've picked only has one different. Now, imagine that actually leaves us with a reserve team of Zach Geacock, assuming we could play Eric Ring on the right, Saxon Early on the left, Tom Hamer, Lewis Monsma at the back, so we'd play 4. You could then play Dom Jeffries, Ethan Hamilton, and JJ McKiernan and Tom Bayliss in a 4-man box midfield. You could play, so you could
Dylan Duffy up top.
Yeah, Dylan Duffy has to try and come into that as well.
He would be on the bench in the reserve team in that like hypothetical. And we've not mentioned there'll be more players there that we've just forgotten about when naming all of these as well, which is just insane. Like who haven't we mentioned? I mean, Rob Street. Okay, he might have got slated earlier on, but
Tyler Walker
when he's back and fit.
You've got Oshin and MJ now. They're kind of around the side. You could actually play a completely reserve 3-5-2 because you could actually play G-Cock. You could have Ring on the right. You could have Kamara, Monsma, and Hamer with a left wing back of, I don't know, Saxon Early. Then you could play Dom Jeffries in the holding midfield, Ethan Hamilton and Tom Bayliss. And then up top, Freddie Draper and Tyler Walker. or even Baylor Cadamartri.
Or even without thinking about MJ Kamara, we could even play Saxon Early as the left-sided centre-half and have Dom Jeffries left wing-back, and then we'd still have a perfectly strong midfield. This is just getting out of hand now, isn't it?
It's getting out of hand, isn't it? We're soon going to, you know what we're soon going to need to do? We're soon going to need to enter a B team in the EFL Trophy. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the Stacey West podcast for this week. I can't believe it's shot by. It's been episode 323. I've actually really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed chatting, taking some questions, talking about a win against Grimsby. We will be back over the weekend with a super academy special with some real special guests. And they are special guests. It's going to be a superb episode. Do not miss that, especially given all the news around the academy before then. However, in the meantime, I'm going to go down to London to Greenwich and party the night away in the big smoke. Charlie's going to be partying the night away all the time in his tropical paradise of Gibraltar. You guys can sit and wait for us next week. We've been the Stacey West Podcast. We've been brilliant. You've been brilliant too. Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.
Lincoln City are the team, the greatest is their name. Sinsel Bank is their home ground and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you lads, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white, the Imps are here to stay. Oh.